Hello, episode 16. Now it's really, I've said it before, the upper echelon. Now we're really in the older songs. Those 29 songs are probably in my top 100 of best songs ever. And 29 is Ticket to Ride, which is it used to be, when I got to be a Beatle fan in, I think 1991, 1992. For the first 1 or 2 years as a Beatles fan, this was probably my favorite song, and it's still one of my favorite songs. It's someone, I think it was even John Lennon, once called it the first heavy metal song. I don't agree with that. I don't think it's a heavy metal song, but I think he was referring to the drum sound. It was the first time they or anybody else recorded those kind of heavy drums with mic'd up drums that were really, really much a loud snare drum sound, and it's really an interesting arrangement. Also, the way that Ringo plays. It was Paul's idea, as usual. Paul's idea how the drums were played. Paul also plays the lead guitar on the track. The solo, or the little solo, is Paul McCartney, and John and Paul wrote it about mutual childhood memory. They went hitchhiking or something like that in the late 50s, and they hitchhiked to Ryde, the town in England called Ryde. So it's a bit of a double meaning there, Ticket to Ride. Yeah, it's a great song. And I think it was the first time that Beatles released, it's not like I said, the first heavy metal song, it's not a ballad, but it was the first time they released a song that wasn't like up-tempo. It was the first mid-tempo song they released. And I think it was the first time a Beatles single A-side was longer than 3 minutes. So the times were changing around that time. 28 is Blackbird, from the White Album, one of the best acoustic ballads by Paul McCartney, or maybe by anyone ever. The lyrics, of course, aren't just about a bird. They're also a civil rights movement influenced kind of subject. So the blackbird, is in Paul's imagination a black woman fighting for her rights in America in the late 60s. Great song, great melody, great lyrics. One of Paul McCartney's best songs, maybe. 27 is Here Comes the Sun. This is probably the last entry. I'm not sure. I think it's probably the last entry from Abbey Road. Abbey Road was never my favorite Beatle album. Nowadays, it seems it's the favorite Beatle albums, especially by younger Beatles fans. On Spotify, usually 5 of the 10 most listened to, most streamed Beatles tracks are from Abbey Road. And Here Comes the Sun is usually number 1 or 2 of the most streamed Beatles songs on Spotify. So it's a song that younger people seem to like. I can see why, because since it's the last Beatles album, it was also the album with the most advanced production. It had almost those 70s kind of production already, and the use of synthesizer. So to modern ears, it sounds maybe the best. And I think Here Comes the Sun, in my opinion, is probably the best song and the best production on Abbey Road. It's a great song. George Harrison had the idea for it in the garden of Eric Clapton, after a long, cold winter. And as George Harrison referred to, the winter of discontent, because the Beatles were fighting all the time, and at the time that he wrote the song, he already knew that the Beatles wouldn't last much longer. And so he was everybody was in a bad mood at the time, all those business problems. And then in late March or early April 1969, it was the first sunny, warm day in England that year, and he didn't have any other appointments. He sat in the garden with Eric Clapton, both had their acoustic guitars. And that was, kind of a day for George where he felt that relief of the sun and no business meetings, and that's what the song is basically about. Great song. 26 is the B-side, if you can call it B-side. Some even think it's a double A-side single. The B-side of Paperback Writer, which is Rain, which is funny that it's not included on this album, the Red album, because they include Paperback Writer, but they don't include Rain. I never understood this because there would have been room for that song. On the Blue album there are 28 tracks, and on the Red album there are only 27 tracks. I never understood why they didn't take Rain as the 28th track, because 1966 is already underrepresented on that album. There are just three songs from that year, which is strange since it's one of the most beloved years of the Beatles' career. And Rain, Rain would have deserved to be on that album. It's definitely better than Old Brown Shoe or something that's on the Blue album. Great philosophical, psychedelic John Lennon lyrics, and together with I'm Only Sleeping, which was recorded at the same time, the first use of backwards guitars, backwards recordings. And Ringo Starr, to this day, thinks this is the best drumming he ever played in his life. And he said he wouldn't know how to recreate it. It was like a magic moment in his career to play it like that. And it doesn't really sound like Ringo. It's like he's possessed by Keith Moon on that one occasion. It's a great drums, but a great song all in all. That's like we've had Hey Bulldog in the last episode. That's another one of those songs where the Beatles as instrumentalists really work together perfectly. 25 is another example for them working together perfectly, but yeah, it's kind of a different song. Happiness is a Warm Gun from the White Album. I said it before many times. The White Album is my favorite album of all time, and Happiness is a Warm Gun is one of the reasons for that. It's such a strange song. That song, there's no other album I can think of that this song could be on. It's like what the White Album is about in one song. It consists of 3 songs. One bit is about Yoko, a love song to Yoko. Another bit is it's about his heroin phase at that time. And the third part, the funny part, the 50s rock and roll part is about people, especially in America, who think that guns are cool, and Beatles, of course, made fun of that. Great song. But maybe not the favorite song of the NRA. Number 24 is I Will, also from the White Album. This is I think this is probably one of the best love songs of all time, not just by the Beatles or by Paul McCartney. Great song, and cool. It's kind of cool that there's no bass. Paul McCartney, one of the best bass players of all time, but he didn't play bass on the song. He sang the bass. So he's a very creative guy to come up with the idea. Hey, now for this song I'm going to sing the bass. I'm not going to play the bass, but it's great. 23 is Back in the USSR. Again, sometimes we have like blocks of an album. That's maybe like the stream of consciousness when I'm making the list, that when I'm thinking of this song, then I'm thinking of that song. But whatever, it's Back in the USSR, also written in India. In India, when they were in Rishikesh, Mike Love of the Beach Boys also went there with the Beatles. And so Paul, was inspired with him being there to make a kind of Beach Boys parody on that song, and he changed USA. There's also a Chuck Berry song called Back in the USA. So it's a parody of Chuck Berry and of the Beach Boys. And he changed USA to USSR, which is funny. Back in the USSR, there's also, of course, the big story behind that song, that Paul McCartney had to play the drums on that song. He also plays lead guitar on the song. But he had to play drums because there was the big argument with Ringo, and Ringo left the band for about 2 weeks after that, unofficially. And that's when Ringo was inspired to write Octopus's Garden, when he was on his own, on holiday, so to speak. And that was his kind of I'm fine on my own song, Octopus's Garden. But the reason for all that was that Paul was once again bossy and told Ringo how to play drums. Ringo didn't play it like Paul wanted it, and then Paul said, okay, now go off, I'm going to do it. And of course that pissed Ringo off, and that was also the time when George got pissed off by Paul's bossy behavior. So this is one of the classic examples of the perfectionist Paul McCartney, the I can do everything better Paul McCartney, but he proved it. He did the perfect job. It's a perfect rock and roll song. Number 22 is going back to the first album, Please Please Me, and it's also the song Please Please Me. From the very, 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 very early songs, like first album, this is my favorite song. I think so. Yes, it is. I can say it. Inspired by Roy Orbison, but George Martin told John to speed it up, so in the end product doesn't sound much like Roy Orbison, but it sounds like the Beatles. With that advice from George Martin, play it a bit faster. George Martin kind of invented the Beatles sound, because since it was that kind of early song, so it was like a blueprint to songs like From Me to You and She Loves You and everything that came later. Yeah, speaking of what comes later, this was the last song for this episode, and we're nearing the end, so maybe the next episode will not be the last, but one of the last episodes. Thank you for watching.